and insiders are really excited to pick your brain about what's happening in the cloud today. First, let's introduce yourself. And you do so much. How do you describe Virtuoso these days?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a background here that I think will provide some context. So I started out as a in the hosting business. I built and ran a data
Hmm.
center and did that for about 13 years. And towards the end, I was actually using Virtuoso's software to provide our public and private cloud offering. And then I left there to come to Virtuozzo to help other partners be successful, other service provider partners, and to build their cloud offering, which I'm sure we'll talk about more today. And so my background is definitely in the MSP area and service provider area as a CSP, which stands for cloud service provider. And so, that's kind of my background. But at Virtuozzo, I run and operate our cloud offering to customers.
Oh, fantastic. Well, what a fun and interesting opportunity. So, explain your position in the cloud sort of marketplace in the landscape and how you sort of differentiate versus those big hyperscalers you mentioned, but also different approaches to deploying cloud,
Yeah,
many of which might not be familiar with some of the viewers.
sure. Yeah. So when I was running my own data center, I was kind of seeing this big shift in the industry, which was that the AWS, Azure, which is Microsoft, Google, so Google Cloud, they just kept taking more and more of the market share. And as they did so, what happened is that it became harder and harder for service providers, cloud service providers, which is the industry I was in, to be able to compete with them. And then on the flip side, the managed service provider who used to actually go to a customer's location, discuss what they were doing with them, build a solution around them, and they oftentimes would make their money on servicing that equipment, was now really just becoming we're going to move your stuff to the cloud where it's so expensive, there's no margins for us. And it's not really built for the service provider. I mean, most of those clouds that I mentioned were built for enterprise, right? And then the
Hmm.
MSP was essentially tasked with trying to find a way to make it work for their small, medium-sized businesses that they serviced, or maybe the enterprise that they service who needed additional outside counsel. And so they were trying to make it fit. And unfortunately, what happened is their margins got squeezed. And so they were in a really bad position. I'm talking about the MSP here, where they have to learn all new technology, retrain all of their staff. They have to try to, switch their entire business model. And in doing so, also try to figure out ways to be more efficient, because it was actually giving them the squeeze. And I think right now, those three hyperscalers I mentioned have 83% of the entire market. It's huge. And so I was sitting here in a position owning this data center where I was saying, what does the future look like for us? And I actually thought it was pretty grim, right? Like the internet as we know it as being this open, free place where you can kind of build whatever solution and sell it online was quickly being consolidated to a point where there was really no room for anybody else anymore. And so I came up with this idea, and I aligned with Virtuozzo, who was my software provider at the time, and I said, look, we need to find a way to unite all of the existing service providers in the infrastructure industry and all of the managed service providers who are actually providing that support to the end user together in a way that they can compete and be successful. And so that's actually why I sold the data center and came on board, was to build this product offering. And so it's unique in the fact that it is actually built for managed service providers from the very beginning, ground up. So we don't sell to end users. We aren't trying to find ways to just automate and remove the MSP from the equation altogether. We make sure they kind of have high margins, and we are creating this, environment where it's more healthy for the internet in general, because we're diversifying the underlying infrastructure and diversifying the the players so that the people who come after us can have the same opportunities we had on the internet when I started my business, which I'm not sure if I were starting my business again today, if I could be as successful in the current market.
Wow, great point. Really radically different approach to how things are going. And you talk a lot about the economics, pricing of the cloud and how to make money and how to make margins. And evidently, it's still possible to make money on cloud services as an MSP or hoster. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, it's different now, right? Because as a service
Yeah.
provider, you're selling yourself and you're selling your expertise. And so you're making your money on the additional services that you layer on top. But the cloud infrastructure that's out there right now from the hyperscalers, when I say hyperscalers, I mean the AWS, Azure, and Google, and those they are so expensive that there's no way for the MSP really to make margin on reselling the service. And they do have reseller programs in place that you can get into. Microsoft's, anytime you're in a contract and an agreement with Microsoft, it's complicated and difficult. AWS, they have a lot of minimum requirements. So you're going to have to pay up front thousands of dollars to even be a part of the program. You're going to have to get certification. You really have to invest a lot into one of those. And there's a high barrier to entry to get started. And you're making very, very little margin on reselling the stuff, right? And so one of the things that we're trying to do, and we've been successful in figuring it out in our initial launch, is guarantee that the MSP has margin baked in. And the way that we do that is we say, hey, look, obviously our product needs to be competitive in the marketplace. So we're going to be cheaper than what you would buy this stuff from the hyperscalers. We also are going to sell this through distributor channels. So most MSPs buy from a distributor because they need to have a whole portfolio of services, cybersecurity services. They need to be able to have backups. We're providing the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service layer abilities on top. But they can consume us from their distributor in their local region who speaks their language, and then then what we do is we say, look, we are going to not sell to end user, only sell to that MSP through those channels, guarantee you some margin baked in there as well. So every time you sell, you make some money on the deal, and like right now, most of our customers are seeing the 20% that's baked into it. And then they're saying, hey, look, but that's with your actual out MSRP rate being cheaper than what the hyperscalers are. So we can mark that up or add additional services on it as well and still show a savings to our customer, even though we're making very healthy 20+% margins. And so, that's really important. And then they don't fear that we're going to steal that customer from them, right? Because we don't sell to that direct end user. So that's, really important from the conversations I've had with those service providers.
Yeah, well, it's a great pitch. And you've managed to line up some really incredible brands and logos, customers in different segments and industries. Maybe talk about who you're working with, some of your customers that are on the website, and how did they end up on the platform?
Yeah, well, Virtuozzo has been around a long time, so they've got some really big logos associated with them. GoDaddy would probably be one of the largest, and the fact that Virtuozzo started as a company making virtualization software for hosters. And so they created kind of the containerization in the first place, the ability to take and share resources very efficiently on hardware while still isolating each customer from a security standpoint. And Virtuozzo for the longest time has been the most efficient containerization system that exists out there. And now there's some other container systems, Kubernetes, and that sort of thing. And we also can provide those now, but that's kind of where we originally got our name in the industry, was by being able to provide this web hosting and software. And so what's different now is that we're actually saying, hey, look, it's from a consolidation standpoint, and because infrastructure as a service and platform as a service is just so much easier than building data centers and then trying to buy servers and run this yourself, you can actually consume all of that directly from us using our cloud. So we're kind of shifting gears a little bit and moving away from being a software provider and being more of a service provider, but we're not cannibalizing our own customer base because, as I said earlier, we're actually going and using our existing customers' data centers and infrastructures as the suppliers. So we're just becoming this kind of in between where we're saying, hey, we're going to guarantee the quality of the stack. We're going to, support the software because we made it, but we're going to support the service provider on the infrastructure side and the MSP on the front end, and then glue all of that together.
Oh, nice pitch. And you built your network on OpenStack. It's been around for a long time, pretty stable. What is the state of play with OpenStack and the core technology in your cloud?
OpenStack is actually stronger than ever. It's funny because there's been a lot of discussion that OpenStack was going to get replaced through orchestration through stuff like Kubernetes, which of course is the container of choice right now in the industry. And what's funny is that you still have to manage the underlying infrastructure. At some point, there's still a server with disks and all of that stuff that has to be managed. And Kubernetes sits on top of that, and it can handle orchestration and moving these workloads around very seamlessly. But OpenStack is much better at managing the orchestration of physical infrastructure. And so it turns out OpenStack is actually one of the most prominent ways that people then manage the infrastructure for Kubernetes, and Kubernetes just sits on top of it. In fact, that's how our software works as well. If you want to run and use Kubernetes containers in our software, it's sitting on top of that OpenStack. The problem with OpenStack, like any open source solution, is that out of the box, it's just not ready to use. And it would take a huge lift to be able to go into an organization and say, hey, I'm going to try to stand this up and manage it for my organization on my own, right? And there's almost no user interface that comes out of the box with it as well. And right. Every time there's an update that comes out, which is very frequent, how are you going to handle doing that inside your organization? And so Virtuozzo makes an out-of-the-box OpenStack. And so it's essentially you install it same way you would with like a VMware, which obviously we could talk more about VMware. There's a lot of news happening around that right now. But you install it, it's pre-configured, ready to go, OpenStack. We create an admin interface for you to be able to use to manage the infrastructure, and a client self-service portal for your customers to be able to log in and just consume. And then it handles automatic updates and migration of the workloads around and all this stuff. But to answer your question, I know I'm long-winded here. OpenStack in my mind
it's interesting stuff.
Is as strong as ever and growing consistently. So I think we really made the right choice going this direction. And before I came to Virtuozzo, because I'm just a little over a year here now with Virtuozzo, that was the decision, and the reason that I came here was because I said, hey, look, this is a company that open sourced its original containerization stuff, and its new offerings are built on open source technology, right? And so they are a huge contributor and to these open source projects, and that's really important to me. I'm very, very passionate about making sure that we are giving back, creating opportunities, and if we are trying to make value, it's not through lock-in, it's through providing a better experience for the customer and being that expert that they can come to. So I don't want people to go use our software and then say, oh, well, gosh, now we're stuck, right? Like we have to use them because the migration would be so difficult. The hyperscalers, that's why they made the bandwidth pricing the way they did. They really lock you in. Hey, you know what? You can move all your data up to the cloud for free, and then to get it out, it's impossible, or extremely expensive. And that's just not a very good model. It works when you're 83% of the entire market, you've dominated, but it doesn't really work for the end customer, right? The MSP should have the flexibility to choose and pick the vendor of their choice and migrate and move as the solutions they're providing change. And that's pretty important to me. And that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about Virtuozzo, was that they were such a big supporter of open source technology.
Wow, nice approach. Congratulations for that. And you have a big footprint globally. You have lots of operations outside the U.S. where you're spinning up new operations, and you're in Switzerland and all kinds of interesting locations. Tell us more about that and the global approach to business.
Yeah, Virtuozzo is a large company, 300 plus employees. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. And I don't normally do our like sales pitches. I'm more on the product side. But
That's why we have you here. Get the real deal, right?
yeah, good. Thank you. And so no offense to anybody that's in sales, right? But no, we have 300 plus employees all over the world. Our headquarters is in Switzerland, but we've got entities in every region. So, if you're Asia Pacific, we have lots of customers there. You name it. Of course, United States, North America, of course, in Europe, all over. So yeah, we're a global company for sure, with both employees and customers there. And then for our new cloud offering, one of the things that I knew was going to be important, just based on talking to MSPs and what they don't get from the hyperscalers, because all of the major clouds now have regions, locations all around the world. But what they don't do is they don't provide support from those regions and those locations. In fact, most of them barely provide support at all, especially not to a live person. So since we are relying on that partner that's in that local region and location to provide the infrastructure, we actually are also leveraging them to be able to help provide support as well. So, I looked a lot at these shared economy type models, such as Uber for the taxi cab companies to be able to drive you around. And one of the things that's really important for people in feeling secure in the fact that this essentially stranger is going to come pick them up and drive them somewhere is that you see their picture, you know who they are, you can chat back and forth with them, you're talking to the actual person. So if you're standing on the corner and you're worried that maybe they have the wrong address for pickup, you can talk directly to the driver who's a block away, right? Whereas before with the taxi cab companies, you're calling some headquarters somewhere and hoping that they can relay this information, and the experience isn't very good, and it's definitely not instantaneous. And so one of the differences with us is that you can actually get that local support from that local regional provider. So if you're having a latency issue and you're worried about your customers who are calling you saying, hey, my service isn't working exactly the way I expect, you can talk to the data center and they can explain to you, yeah, there's something going on. There's a fiber cut or whatever, right? At the end of the day, there's numerous different things that can happen, but it's really about providing that ultra high quality customer service experience to the MSP so that they can, transparently know what's going on and be able to talk to their customer and let them know as well.
Nice. So you don't have to go to Down Detector to figure out your cloud service is down.
That's or you put a ticket in and they say everything's fine, and then you're like, well, I know it's not, right? And then you go back and forth for a week and it suddenly fixes itself, and you're going, how am I supposed to offer reliable service to my customer when I can't even figure out myself what's going on?
Nice approach. So as you know better than I, cloud security, compliance are key pillars now, really top of mind. How do you meet your customers' demands there, given this wave of cybersecurity threats out there on the cloud side?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it inherently, because we have all these regions and locations, and because we're essentially just gluing these different partners into one interface for the customer, you can just deploy your workloads in a specific region location. And then from a compliance standpoint, your data is secure in the fact that it never leaves your country. Choose just the Frankfurt, Germany location if your customer's in Germany, or choose just your Dallas in the United States if your customer's in the United States, right? And we chose very carefully the integrations that we've done to make sure that we are fully compliant as well. So we've, done the research and gone into where's the actual data stored, who's going to have the ability to see this. We are using these partners, but they don't need to have access to see that customer information. They just need to be able to manage the infrastructure and maybe do support, and so we've looked at that at every single layer and built it in to make sure that the customer's information is protected just inside of our system, right? Because you're managing your customers inside of here as well. But then also, there's quite a few MSPs that are building security, cloud security as a service offerings to their customers. So I can think of one off the top of my head who, that's all they do is they build these firewalls in the system where they can route all of the company's traffic through it. And then they build all of the corporate infrastructure inside of our cloud so that their customers directly connect in, or their business that they're servicing, employees can connect directly in through the secure environment and use all that infrastructure. And I was having a conversation with him about it, and I was like, well, you could do that on any of the hyperscalers, right? And he said, yeah, but their egress is so expensive that most of the time what happens is companies that offer this cloud firewall service don't actually route all of the traffic from the employee through it, only the traffic that's going to those servers inside of it. So they're not securing the local computer of the employee like they would be if they were in office, because a lot of companies are still doing remote. And they said, because the egress fees are so expensive. And they said, with your pricing, we actually are going to route, when that employee connects to the company VPN, all of their traffic can go through the secure environment now, where they've gone in and protected and made sure everything was secure. So it's actually creating the ability for MSPs to offer security as a service, cloud security as a service, and make margin on as well. So it's kind of really cool to see just how different companies create these product offerings that sit on top of it, and how they are unique. And they said the branding was really important for them too, because this same company, because they were like, now we're selling our cloud. We're not selling somebody else's cloud. When our end customer logs in, they see our logo, they see our contact info, it's isolated for just their infrastructure or whatever. And they said, and so it really gives them the feeling that they're selling their own product and not somebody else's.
Nice. Well, indeed they are. So as you've seen lots of AI and machine learning workloads being delivered in the cloud, are you seeing that same trend? And what do you expect over the next year?
Yeah, it's funny, and this kind of goes against what I've been saying a little bit, but the data centers, they get squeezed, right? And so there is consolidation, but then there's always kind of this thing that comes along that breathes life back into them. And so, the first thing I think of is what happened with crypto coin, Bitcoin specifically, where all of a sudden they go, hey, we need very special infrastructure. We need very little bandwidth. We need a lot of power. We're not so concerned with the reliability of that power, because we just need to run these dedicated ASIC mining boxes to generate this crypto coin. Right. And so the traditional data centers were the fastest to come to them and say, we can redo what we've got and make it work for you. And so this helped stop the bleeding a little bit from what was happening with the hyperscalers taking their business away from them, and gave them an opportunity. And then what's happened again is now we've said, hey, machine learning, AI, it's huge again right now, but it requires these dedicated GPU workloads that have a very dense power requirement. Excuse me. Customers still want to consume it in the same way that they would cloud, but they want to be able to have access directly to those GPUs for whatever new AI project they're working on. And so it's kind of breathing life back into the local data center again. This is giving them the opportunity to take and say, hey, guess what? These racks that maybe have emptied out through attrition of the industry squeezing us are now filling back up again with these dedicated GPU mining rigs that are doing the AI machine learning workloads. And Virtuozzo is of course making sure that their cloud customers can take advantage of that through advancements to OpenStack that we have done to allow GPUs to be connected directly to the virtual machines or the Kubernetes container, so that our customers can sell cloud-like experience, but with GPU capabilities for those new workload types as well.
Fantastic. Well, it's exciting times. So you just got back from Europe. Any other trips before the holidays? Are you going to be at home base for a while? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm hoping I can stay home. Weeks? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, just you're going to stay home and home base for a bit?
Yeah, no, my plan is to spend the rest of this year here at home, which is Kansas City for me in the U.S. And so I'm going to spend the rest of the year here and hopefully get to see family and spend
get some rest. That would be nice. Yes, rest and recovery.
Yeah,
R&R, as they say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I
What are
really hope.
you most excited about on your roadmap for the next year? I mean, you must have a lot on your plate, and trying to stay one step ahead of the curve. Anything you can share there as far as the technology?
Yeah, sure. So obviously enhancements of machine learning and AI.
Hmm.
We are really fortunate to have technology that is extremely high performance and great storage system. But for my product specifically in the cloud, it's built to be a channel product, and so we have onboarded a bunch of distribution partners recently that are just
Mm,
starting to go through the training and incorporate us into their price book, into their marketplaces. And so we're really excited to see that. Excuse me, that new kind of customer access to those customers that those distributors that have not used our platform before. We just launched this, kind of MVP. Minimal viable product back in June. So it's fairly new offering still. And
nice.
so, I think the biggest thing is those distribution partners coming on board with them. And on the other side, all of our existing customer base who's saying, hey, we want to sell, we want to be a part of this. Let's integrate and let's be the local cloud region location for you. Right. And so those are kind of the things that have kind of come together for it to be a full cloud offering that is accessible to the MSP through their existing partnerships.
Oh, fantastic vision, great mission. Congratulations on all the success. And yeah, let's keep in touch. Really enjoyed your insights and analysis. No spin, so I appreciate that, Joe. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Virtuoso on social media. They're pretty active, and I saw you have a number of like workshops and seminars that look quite interesting. So we'll check those out as well.
Perfect. Hey, I appreciate being here. And yes, please do go to virtuozzo.com and check out the hybrid cloud product. And I'm on a lot of those social media platforms as well. And feel free to hit me up directly. And I'd love to continue the discussion and know whether this stuff resonated with you as well. And I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Great resource. Okay.